Well, Shabbat Shalom. As you may have heard, I had the great honor of attending a reception at the White House this past Monday afternoon in honor of Jewish American Heritage Month, affectionately known as JAHM. I'm not sure if it's actually affectionately known as JAHM, but I'm calling it JAHM from now on. It was first proclaimed by President George W. Bush in 2006 at the suggestion of Senator Arlen Specter. Now, the fact that the federal government recognizes and acknowledges our unique contribution to this country is not a trivial thing. We make up just 2% of the population of this country, but because I would argue of the disproportionate nature of our contributions to American society and culture, we get a whole month to celebrate. I've been to the White House one time before, a few years back, when I was attending an APAC policy conference with my eldest daughter, Isa. We had a tour, but this was a whole different experience. I was invited to this reception because of world-famous comedian, author, and actor, and Stephen Wise Temple member, Tiffany Haddish. When she was invited, she asked if she could bring her rabbi along with her, and the White House said, of course. We were asked to come to the White House an hour and a half before the 5 o'clock reception for a special VIP tour, sort of behind the scenes at the White House. And let me just say, if you ever have the chance to take such a tour with someone as engaging and hysterically funny as Tiffany, you should do it. Her latest book is called I Curse You with Joy, and it's aptly named because everywhere we went, she brought the smiles and the laughs. She joked with the Secret Service agents who are not exactly known for their great senses of humor. They have a very serious job to do, but she was cracking them up everywhere we went. And some of them actually asked if they could take selfies with her. When she saw the White House orchestra preparing music for an incoming diplomat, sometimes when important people show up from other countries, the White House orchestra is there to play them in with a special melody that's usually native to their land. And she came by the orchestra and asked if they knew any songs by Beyonce. And they all started laughing, and then she got them to do one and made a video of it. It was really fun. Then we had a tour of the Eisenhower Executive Building, and same thing everywhere we went, every room where there were aides and different staff, she made them laugh. And finally, we were taken to a room in the East Wing of the White House where we got to see magnificent portraits of many of the first ladies. And then we were taken to the Rose Garden for the actual reception. And there was time to schmooze and enjoy the beautiful setting, and of course, nosh on some glatt kosher appetizers, which again is not a trivial thing. When the White House hosts something like this, of course, they make sure that all the guests are well taken care of. What was interesting and inspiring about this part of the afternoon was witnessing the number of people who came up to Tiffany to thank her for her advocacy on behalf of the Jewish people in Israel. And if you haven't followed her story, you might not know that Tiffany's father, of blessed memory, was a Jew from Eritrea. And she didn't discover this, though, until she was in her teenage years. And then later in her life, she embraced her Judaism completely. And at age 40, she decided to celebrate becoming bat mitzvah. And this included her learning all of the prayers, learning how to chant verses from her Torah portion, and preparing a Devar Torah. And through my friendship with one of Tiffany's friends, Rabbi Susan Silverman, I was honored to help. And I got to spend some time with her in the days immediately preceding her bat mitzvah. She joined us here for Friday night services right before her bat mitzvah at Wise, and she had Shabbat dinner at my home. And then she was so taken with Cantor Emma during the Friday night service that I said to Tiffany after, I said, do you want me to ask Cantor Emma if she could join us for your bat mitzvah? And literally with tears in her eyes, she said yes. So Cantor Emma joined, and it was just beautiful. And now Tiffany refers lovingly to Cantor Emma as the Beyonce of cantors. Since then, Tiffany's Jewish identity has continued to deepen, and we are honored to have her as a member of Stephen Wise. And she's attended many Shabbat services and she's a regular on our High Holy Days. This past February, she took her first trip to Israel and was, sadly but not unexpectedly, subjected to a great deal of online hatred and vitriol for that trip. She has since posted on her very large social media platform many times about her Jewish identity, and she's become a true advocate for Israel and for her people. Recently, she spoke at the BBYO International Convention with another member of our temple, Noah Tishby, where she proudly told the thousands and thousands of teens gathered there, and you can go online and watch it, it's really inspiring. But she told them that she would never hide her Jewish identity. She said, "I have 3 problems in life. I'm a woman, I'm black, and I'm Jewish. I can only hide one of those, and the one I can only hide one, and the one that I can hide is the one that gives me the most fulfillment in my soul, so I'm not going to hide it." She told the teens gathered there, and what an important message for them to hear at this moment when they are experiencing something that many of us can barely remember or maybe have no memory of because we didn't experience it in our own lives the way they are going through it right now. But she told them that the place where she feels most safe and whole is her temple, this place right here. And if you've seen her on interviews and social media, often you'll notice this beautiful Jewish star that she wears that was a gift on her becoming bat mitzvah from Barbra Streisand, if you don't know. So there she was at the White House on her very first visit there. She'd never been before. And dozens of people are coming up to her, telling her how much she means to them as a Jew. How her trip to Israel, her comments, her advocacy about Israel's right and obligation to defend itself, her willingness to be publicly Jewish and never hide that. It means a lot to a lot of people. And several of those who came to introduce themselves to her identified themselves as Jews of color and said to Tiffany that they wanted her to know just how important it is to them to have a public figure like her stand up proudly as a Jew. And we've seen on some college campuses and elsewhere these ridiculous claims about all Jews being white, that we are oppressors, that we are colonialists, that we are not indigenous to the land of Israel. And so to have a voice like hers is all the more important at this moment. And one of the other things she demonstrates is that when we use our voice and our platform to advocate for our people, however big or small those platforms may be, it can make a real difference. So I want to invite us all to be proud and loud about our Judaism in our workplaces, in our communities, throughout whatever networks we find ourselves in. We should never hide this part of ourselves. And I hope and pray that this will be for each of us the kind of thing that gives us a deep sense of fulfillment and pride. And I felt that way a little bit later in the afternoon when the president came and addressed the group. And President Biden began by describing the contributions that the Jewish community has made to the United States since even before we were a country. We have positively influenced so many different aspects of the American experience, from music to art, science, and scholarship, and of course politics as well. And then the president spoke about the horrific attack of October 7th, and he was unambiguous about Israel's right to defend itself. He was clear about his critique of the ICC's arrest warrants that were issued this week, and about the ridiculous and dangerous use of the word genocide in connection to what is happening now in Gaza, which is clearly not a genocide. He made it clear with his words, as he has with his actions, that the United States will continue to stand with Israel, saying that his commitment to the safety of the Jewish people and the security of Israel and its right to exist as an independent Jewish state is ironclad. And he reminded us as well, as I've said from this bema multiple times already, that empathy is not a zero-sum game. As the president put it, consistent with the Jewish values of compassion, kindness, and human dignity, my team also is providing critical humanitarian assistance to help innocent Palestinian civilians who are suffering greatly, as he put it, note these words, who are suffering greatly because of the war Hamas has unleashed. He also spoke about what's happening on many college campuses, including those two of my own daughters have attended in recent months. And he said, compounding that pain is a vicious surge of anti-Semitism around the world, here in America as well, in our streets, our social media, and college campuses. And then he added, it's absolutely despicable, it's wrong, and it must stop. What touched me most, though, was a comment he made toward the end of his remarks. He said, to the Jewish community, I want you to know, I see your fear, your hurt, and your pain. And let me assure you, as your president, you are not alone. You belong. You always will belong. My friends, we should take none of this for granted. There has never been a diaspora in the history of the Jewish people where our fear, our hurt, our pain, and our contributions have been seen like this. I know it doesn't always feel that way, and I know it doesn't feel that way right now much of the time, but it's still true. And of course, it's not just this president. Going back to the founding of our nation, and with great consistency over almost 250 years since, our leaders have been there for the Jewish community. It was President George Washington, in his letter to the Hebrew congregation in Newport, Rhode Island, in 1790, who laid out a vision of religious tolerance in this country that his successors have largely honored. He wrote that America would be a nation that, quote, gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. And Washington ended his letter with a beautiful prayer. May the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. President Washington's prayer connects beautifully with a verse from this week's Torah portion, the one that Rabbi Sari referenced at the beginning of our service. It talks about the Jubilee. Every 50 years, we are commanded, Ukratem dror ba'aretz lechol yoshveha. You shall proclaim liberty throughout the land for all its inhabitants. This is the verse that you've seen on the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia or on replicas of it. It's what we've always been searching for throughout our centuries of wandering. We've been searching for a place where we might live in dignity, for a place where we might not be persecuted for our beliefs or our practices. And America has been that place, notwithstanding the challenges of this moment. America still is, and I think can continue to be that place. But we should acknowledge there is cause for concern and there is work to be done. But for now, and I think if we strive alongside other people of goodwill, people who care about the nature and strength of our democracy, future generations of Jewish Americans will merit to live in a place where a Jew like Tiffany Haddish and a Jew like Yoshi Zweiback can be welcomed into a place like the White House with warmth, dignity, empathy, and compassion. As we enter into our Memorial Day weekend, and as we draw closer and closer to what we know will be a contentious election season, let us do our part to both give thanks for and continue to vigorously advocate for this liberty, so that whomever receives the honor of holding that office will see and hear the pain, aspirations, and joy of all the inhabitants of this land. It's no small order. We know how rare it has been throughout our history. We know that, in fact, it's not just rare. Perhaps it's simply never existed the way it has here. And I shared this in the message that I sent out to the congregation this morning. I've studied Jewish history throughout my adult life, and never before have Jews lived in a time with a sovereign Jewish state whose closest ally is the most powerful nation in the world, whose leaders have declared publicly on many occasions, as President Biden did this past Monday afternoon, my commitment to the safety of the Jewish people and the security of Israel and its right to exist as an independent Jewish state is ironclad. Jewish American Heritage Month gives us the opportunity to reflect on both the tremendous contributions we have made to this country, as well as the extraordinary gifts this country has given us in return. May God bless Israel, and may God bless Israel's greatest friend in the family of nations, the United States of America. I want to wish you all a happy Jewish American Heritage Month, a Shabbat Shalom, and Am Yisrael Chai.